We're back.
We are back. Welcome back, everybody, to the relationship cycle with Jorge and Nelsa. Poppy, I think we are in for a wonderful show today. We are talking about meet the parents or meet the family. So, how long do you think a person should be in a relationship with someone before you get introduced or you introduce them to the family?
Oof. Oh man. Let me go on record saying that
You want to be
I
official, Poppy?
let me go on record and say that I don't know if there is an exact time frame, right?
Okay.
That you can just kind of write and set in stone before introducing because I'll give you a couple of scenarios, right?
Okay.
What if it's like a somebody who was from your past, right? Or, a college
Hmm.
sweetheart or high school sweetheart that you know relatively well.
Right.
Maybe you may not have to wait, 8 months or a year to introduce, right? Or maybe it's somebody that was already in your friend circle, family circle,
Hmm.
and then things have gotten a little spicy. And, maybe you don't have to wait super long to introduce a child. And I do think, too, that it's important to highlight what is your family dynamic? How old are the kids? Because if you got a 5 or 6 year old who's still very young and doesn't understand, how romantic relationships work and how the dynamics work, then obviously I think you got to be very, very cautious. And I think you do have to have some one-on-one conversations with the child or children, um, and also protect them, right?
Yeah,
And also let
definitely.
them know that, hey, I'm seeing someone, but please believe that you are still my priority. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. As a mother of two children, and after going through divorce, uh, my oldest daughter was 16, about to be a senior, and my youngest was 11. And so they were still in that very impressionable stage, didn't really understand the workings of the divorce, much less, when the time to start dating came around. So I was very, very careful. And I'm just this way because of my family background. I just never got to spend the night with anybody and everybody. My family didn't have us around, just a bunch of different people in and out of our lives like that. So we're very protective. And maybe some people would say overprotective, but it's funny that my kids last night are talking about all this stuff that's going on in the world and how much access kids have to technology and apps and that kind of thing. So if they didn't understand me being so protective earlier about certain things, but now they're like, "Oh my God, Ma, we didn't understand then." I said we had a full circle moment, but I was very cautious about bringing, any man in front of them. They had a great dad that was not, somebody didn't need to be their father. They have a father. And so I didn't want just them to see, any and everybody in front of me. So they only met people that I felt like there was some permanence in the relationship when they were younger. Now that they're a little bit older, they themselves have been in dating relationships. Um, I'm still like not just like this my man, in front of them. And I'm very cautious about, I'm always with whoever the person was when I was with them. I don't know. I just grew up with that background where you don't have your kids exposed to anybody and everybody. And I wasn't just dating, trash, mind you. At least I didn't think I was, but that's the thing. Until you really know a person and even like somebody you dated back in the day, like who are they now as an adult? And so you don't always know that. So you need to really study a person. And I don't know that I have been always the best judge of character because I'm always one of those people that I give you, you know, I give you access until you give me a reason not to. That's the side of
Mm.
the coin that I'm on. I'm developing a little more of a set boundary as I'm working on myself. But I was really ferocious about who I let near my kids. So, and then even with my other family members, here's the thought that came to me with this topic. People get attached. And sometimes the family gets attached to somebody and they don't want to let them go. I know
Oh man,
somebody
that could get
whose
sticky.
mother-in-law, yeah, her mother-in-law liked the girl her son dated prior to his wife. And so the mother-in-law never really warmed up so much to the new daughter-in-law right away because she was still attached to his old girlfriend. And so I thought, man, that would be awful though, to get your family attached to somebody and then things don't work out. And it's still going to happen. Like I was married and, you know, still got divorced. So my family had to, work that around their minds. But dating seems still very impermanent. So I'm
Yeah, and
just not really going to bring it like that.
I think to me it's a case by case basis, and obviously, you've been a parent, you understand your kids better than anyone.
Right.
So I do think that obviously, as a parent, you have to be mindful of your best interest and their best interest, and also to not put your partner in a situation where they're like, "Whoa, I'm feeling overwhelmed." Like we've gone on
Yeah.
our 2 dates, and now you're over here introducing me like I'm going to be a stepmom or a stepdad. So I think it's also important, right, to
Hmm.
maybe have a conversation, obviously with your kids, and obviously with the significant other, to kind of bring it up to see, hey, how do you feel about meeting some of my family or coming to a family cookout? Because sometimes that person may be like, I'm not ready for all that. I'm not, I still think that we're still trying to get to know
Hmm.
each other. And the whole concept of, because I know some people are like, oh, it's got to be at least 8 months or 6 months or a year or whatever. To me, I'm like, okay, well, how often are you seeing this person within that scope of 6 months, a year,
Yeah,
or whatnot, right? Because if it's a out
absolutely.
of town relationship, you might see this person once every 6 weeks. So, yeah, you've been, together, quote unquote, for 6 months, but you've only seen this person a handful of times.
Right.
And then the other spectrum, right, where you might know this person 4 or 5 months, but you guys see each other every weekend or every week. So obviously, you guys are getting a lot of FaceTime and spending a lot of time together. So you've kind of gotten to see a lot of different sides of this person and a lot of versions of themselves. So you have a pretty good handle on who they are, and obviously you got to have that conversation, let them know, hey, how do you feel about coming to a family function and meeting my children and family? So I think all those conversations
Yeah.
need to be put on the table, and obviously see how they feel about it, because particularly somebody who doesn't have children, there's things that they're not going to understand about parenting.
Well, and that's the thing too. I like about what you said about this whole communication and thinking in terms of the number of meetings you've had and how deeply you've gone in those meetings with the other person because I think a lot of times bringing family in does create a bit of a pressure to like what does this mean? Because people start asking questions, and that's the part about family. My daughters when they do finally meet somebody, the first thing out my youngest daughter's mouth is, "What are your intentions with my mother?" Like
Oh
she
my
goes on
God,
the
no
attack.
way.
Listen, yes way. She does not BS around with people. So if you don't have a good answer for that and you don't satisfy whatever that thing is in her soul that makes her feel like you're not the one for my mama because you don't know how to answer these basic questions. Like, I was like, baby, whoa, we just friends. We just, getting to know each other right now.
Yeah, we
And it's like,
still,
okay, well, fine, but
you need to be
still,
like, baby girl, well, I'm still trying to put my toes in the water. Relax.
girl, I'm right about that. But her thing is, and I kind of like her viewpoint. It's kind of funny how your kids teach you things sometimes, but her viewpoint is if they shake on that, like if they don't have a good answer for that, even if it's just friends, we're getting to know each other and there's hesitation or, you trying to sell something that she's not buying, like that's really like that going on the attack gives her like, I guess, character information about the person. And I'm going to tell you the truth. This is a funny thing with her. That's why I don't introduce them too soon because I know if I'm not sure, the other person may not be sure, and she definitely is going to be like, no, absolutely not, and just that will be very uncomfortable. But a lot of times, she's helped me to start learning how to look at the responses. Like my daughter is really teaching me how to date sometimes with the way she goes about things because she's like, Mama, if they can't answer that, they're not ready for you. I was like,
Oof.
okay,
Oh
okay. But
man.
the way she sees me as her mother has really shaped like the way I'm starting to see myself as a valuable person in these relationships. And I'm doing my back work. I'm back in therapy doing some stuff, and I don't mind talking about it because I think people do need to know, like, what is it that you are looking to gain from this relationship? And family can sometimes be what people are looking for. And what I mean by that is I have another friend who got married, and I said, well, you know, we had spent a lot of time talking and just delving into getting to know each other. And I was like, so why are you marrying this person? Because I was like, you don't really sound like, it's really all about love necessarily. So what is it? He answered by saying, that's my ice. I said, your ice? What's that mean? He said, I
Oh,
want an in case of emergency person besides my parents. And, while I'm sure there was some other factors as well, that was the thing that was like he wanted to be attached to somebody. He wanted to be married. And I know several people who've been married 2, 3, 4 times. They like being married. They like being connected and having family, especially if their own family hasn't been great. I know some people that, you know, they haven't even been with the husband or whatever. Maybe they're widowed or whatnot, but they would go around the in-laws still because they had become family with those people. So the new person was like either going to have to be all right with this old person coming around because the family still wanted them to be in these functions, or it was going to be some problems had because, when people get attached like that, either they don't make room for the new person or it's just very uncomfortable a lot of times. And so, you really need to think about that before you start attaching your person to your family because they may end up liking the person and then that's going to make your next man feel like, well, where I fit in into all of this.
it is definitely something that we do have to take into account. And I will say, right, as a single man, and then when I'm out in these streets dating,
Yeah.
and a woman introduces me to her children, either purposely or inadvertently, soon it does make me wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, we still haven't even figured out what we're going to be or where this is going, and I'm already being exposed to your children. That to me, right, as I
Mm-hmm.
look at it, right, from a man that does not have kids, who does aspire to maybe have kids one day, it does make me wonder. Um, this is a bit reckless, or a bit peculiar that you've had a couple of cups of coffee with me and now you think that it's okay to bring kids around. So definitely that to
Yeah.
me,
That's a
from
big
the
jump.
from the male perspective, that is a bit of a red flag. Now, to be fair, right, it's sometimes it's been out of necessity or inadvertently. Like I remember I had a date that and me and her had gone out a few times already, but obviously, we had not gotten to the point where we were ready to meet families or anything like that. And obviously, as you know, sometimes I typically don't drive because of my medical condition. So she
Mm-hmm.
came and picked me up. But she came and picked me up, and then she came to the door and knocked on the door. And then my mom's like, "Hey, there's a woman out here. Who's this lady?"
Right.
And I'm like, "Oh shit!" I'm like, so now, like when I came back, I had to explain to my mom that, hey, she's somebody that I've been hanging out with and going on dates, trying to see if there's any sparks or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so it happened inadvertently. She didn't try to purposely try to meet my mom. It just so happened that she knocked on the door when she came to pick me up, and my mom was the first one at the door, so she met my mom.
Right. You're like, look, mommy, don't think this is like the
Yeah,
one.
and at that point, it was way too early to figure
Yeah.
out where we stood on that. I mean, we hadn't even been intimate, just to give you some
Yeah.
clarity on that. So
Early,
I am
early.
like, we are still we're like in the toddler phase of this.
But our listeners, as always, on Facebook, bring really relevant points, and we had several good conversation threads. The first one was Annie Carver. She said her first love met fam immediately. Bad idea, because my people are hard to deal with. Nobody else had the privilege to meet until Marcus, the man I'm with now. I waited a few months to meet my sister, 2 years to introduce him to my parents, 3.5 years before he met my son with my ex. I gained knowledge on his behaviors, his reactions to situations, and how he treated his children before I allowed him access to my family. I waited 3 years to meet his children also. Again, I mainly chose this because my family is the type that says, oh, it's just the way I am, deal with it. It's my way or the highway, etc. I evolved past that mindset and didn't want to subject another potential love interest to the chaos involved with those types of people until I felt like the man genuinely, truly knew my mannerisms and character enough to not compare me to that and to not let it reevaluate his opinion of me also. So, um, in this one, Annie sounds like the family was like a little much for her. So she didn't want to even give her mate the opportunity, to have to deal with all of that. It's a lot of energy. And I don't think family realizes, well, I think sometimes they do, honestly. I've got another friend that says, his family, if you bring somebody around, they put them through the paces. And like, if you can't deal with us, you might not make it in this relationship. I was like, man, that is no way to be. Look, you can't
Listen,
people people off.
this reminds me. You remember that movie with Ashton Kutcher and Bernie Mac? Like, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner?
Oh
You remember
yes,
that?
yes, yes, yes. Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness, that is one of my favorite movies. Whenever you
Mhm.
mention this topic, that movie kept popping into my head when he thought that his daughter was dating a black man, and then she shows up with like a regular suburban white guy, and
Yes.
Bernie Mac was like, "What the hell is going on in my house?"
Yeah, and then subject your person to all your family's biases, whether you are aware of them or not. Sometimes, if you've never brought somebody real different to the family, and especially, listen, I've got friends now who are, lesbian, gay, what have you. And so, like, the first time they ever came out to their family and brought a same sex partner to the function,
Ooh wee.
right? You know what I mean? You really are learning about your family through your own dating window because you start seeing, like, do you really know what your family's philosophy is on certain things, whether it's a political party affiliation they start talking about, or they don't go to church. Lord, you bring that to the wrong family. And it's gonna be like they up in there trying to get the Holy Ghost down and baptize your person. Talking about what you talking about? You don't believe in God. You don't go to church. Like that
Yeah,
really
and that's
be
why it's important to
yes.
have that conversation beforehand so that they kind of, they at least walk in, you know, at least with some preparation,
I think so.
and at least to kind of be aware that, hey, don't be surprised if mine starts preaching to you because, me personally, I always tell, whenever I go on dates, I always tell women, look, I like to know the devil I'm dancing with. And if it happens to be a woman of another race, particularly Caucasian, I always like to ask, like, "Hey, how does your family feel about you dating outside your race?" Because I don't want to be going to no family cookout that they're smiling, and then when I turn my back, they're like, "Who's this Mexican dude you brought here?" I'm not Mexican, but you get my point. Um,
Look, sometimes people just go with the first thing they think they see.
Yeah, and listen, I've been in the South 31 years, so I can promise you that I have heard and seen a lot of stuff, and
We
I have seen the growth and evolution of Charlotte, where it wasn't always a melting pot. And I
Mhm.
always tell women, like, look, just be real, like, and listen. I, have heard from black women that sometimes their family aren't fond of them bringing, men of other races. So it's not just white people
I
that
know.
are racist and
I was gonna
prejudiced.
say,
So
Pop, it can go any kind of way. I mean, even with you, being Latino, a lot of times, your moms and family members want somebody who's Spanish speaking who understands the culture. Like nobody. Sometimes this is what I've been learning too. Our families want comfort, not only for us but for them. Like
agreed.
sometimes people don't want to be challenged in their thinking and in their belief systems. And a new person that is outside of the cultural norm can do that. Even just a new person, like if it's somebody that wasn't raised up with the family, or the family always looked at you and so and thought y'all would be a good match, you picking someone who is outside of that worldview for them, like really does throw a monkey wrench for people. But that's why I think too, we've been talking about this a lot recently in our past episodes, is getting to know what it is you want first, because you can get tossed and turned by the waves of everybody else's opinion when you don't actually know what it is you're looking for. And so if you don't know and you're just out there dating for the first time in a long time, or for the first time, excuse me, then maybe you need to like see first what your preferences are, which is a good reason to not bring somebody around your family until you get into a state of mind where, okay, I like this. I like this type of person. I like when a person does this. I like this type of worldview or whatever. But a lot of times people jump into the middle of the thing, and especially like if you get set up by your family with somebody on a date, like I don't know how I feel about that either. That's a whole nother topic. But it's like that ownership, like your family feels like they own it or they got a stake or a stock in the decision that you're going to make. And somebody said this one time, I want to say right before I got married, it's like you're actually marrying that person and their family. So there is a point where I think if you have a good relationship with your family and you want your partner to have a good relationship with you and your family, you do have to introduce them eventually. Like I can't imagine showing up with somebody that my family had never met, talking about we're together now. They were like, whoa, when did this happen? The betrayal, I think people feel that they weren't a part of that decision, or at least not a part of the communication that you made this decision, sometimes make them feel away. Not that I think you need to do everything your family says or whatever. Don't get me wrong. Your dating life is really about you and that person, but you are connected to other people. And I think you really have to be honest with yourself. But, this is one of the experiences that was shared with us as well. Where's Catherine? Okay, Catherine Madeline says, all depends on the couple. I think it should be a mutually agreed upon thing, especially when you have children. You need to be very careful bringing people around. My Minnie has only seen me around one man other than her father. In dating, once you're serious and feel like it's going to be more than a temporary thing, and it's someone you can see being with long term, it needs to be gradual and again discussed. Both of the people in the relationship need to be ready, not one sided. And just personally, I can remember, I kind of prepped my kids when I, started dating after their dad. Like they had been used to seeing us. So I knew there was going to be some uh, about seeing me with another man that wasn't their dad. So, I started talking about, well, I may start dating. How do y'all feel about that? We started having those conversations to get them prepped and ready. Um, I'm not sure if that's what happened with their dad or not, but I know they would experience like seeing, the first time he brought someone to the house, to our old house besides me, it really ripped my youngest daughter a little bit because she had been used to seeing her mom in the kitchen, her mom in these spaces. And so I don't know what his prep was, and I can't speak to that. And I'm not, judging or condemning or anything, but I'm saying her reaction to his first dating experience after our marriage, um, she was a little bit, you know, distraught a little more about it. And maybe because her first experiences with seeing the new person were not outside of our old home.
and I
So,
think, and I do think too that that is, obviously, taking into account what the children or the child have gone through and the age. It's important, right, to reiterate that hey, you are my priority. But obviously, mom is or dad, right, is single, and I am seriously interested in this person, and I will see where this goes. But at the same time, I do feel that it's important to take into consideration how the kids feel about the overall circumstances, because it can also harbor resentment, right? Where
yeah,
they feel that, hey, you're more focused on him or her and you are forgetting about us.
right,
So that can definitely create some sort of wedge, especially right if they're at an age where they don't understand why people divorce, or why or why people can't be together for whatever reason. So to me, it is important to have those conversations with the child or children, so that they understand that hey, look, just because I am trying to date, that doesn't mean that you're still not my priority.
well, and honestly, I'll discuss this with adult children now, since now I'm parenting one a full adult and one who's about to be an adult. There is still that sort of little kid energy around haven't prioritized time. And so I think this is why, again, dealing with your family, making sure that you've kind of thought through some of these things, which is why I think our show is great, because I think we talk about a lot of things that help people. Maybe you don't realize these situations are looming ahead, and it may not always work out exactly the way we describe it, but at least you are forewarned. But making time for family members, like, you know, my mom, who is now dating, wasn't when I first started. And so she kind of felt away because we used to spend so much time together before I was dating. And then once I started dating, I was spending less time with her. So I had to really talk to her and make sure that I put time on a schedule for us to be together so that she didn't feel isolated and like somebody was taking me from her. Same thing with my kids. Even though now they're, about fully grown, I still have to make sure I have time just with them. Like they don't want to see somebody's face up in the place all the time when I'm with them. They want their own single, just us, mama time. And so I try to make sure that I'm doing that so that everybody is getting what they need. But I'm also making sure now, which is something I didn't do back in the day, that I'm getting what I need, and I'm not just doing what makes everybody else feel most comfortable, and it's all about their agenda and not my own. I think you just got to really think about balance in everything, especially relationships, if you want it to work.
No, and I agree, and I do think that it's just important to be mindful. It's something that you definitely should not take lightly, and you want to consider obviously the family. You want to consider the kids' interest, but also you and your partner's interest too, right? Because
Mhm.
to me, if I'm introducing you to family, then to me that means that hey, I really think highly of you, and I think that there's some potential there, right? So let's clear that up. That we're not saying that you can't have your sneaky links or friends with benefits or lovers or whatever the case may be, but obviously understand that if you are in that dynamic and you're trying to introduce them to the kids, that can get messy. So you want to be aware of what this is and where this is going. And once you establish that, then you can kind of move accordingly. Because me personally, obviously, if I had kids, I'm not going to be introducing the child or children to every woman that I'm close with or comes around because it's not for everybody to know.
Well, we love to go to the research department, and ambiancematchmaking.com says, so if you want to hear it from the experts and not just our opinion, many dating experts even say to wait 3 months before introducing your date to friends and family. 3 months is a long time to date someone in solitary. Now, this is like what we've been talking about. How deep is this? How often are you seeing them? With the only interaction being with the waiter at your favorite restaurant. Simple action can be eye opening. So, they're suggesting that 3 months, but don't even jump up in the first month or two, but give it 3 months and look at the interactions this person has with people outside of your association. How do they treat the staff? How do they talk about their own family? If they even talk about their own family, what sort of language are they using around kids? Like, do they talk about liking kids or wanting kids or having any experience? Because this is the thing I learned. People can want to have their own children and not like other children. It may not even like their own children because they're really not kids people. You really need to watch some of these signs. So sometimes I think it might be good to bring people around your family because then you can kind of ferret out a little bit and see. But they're saying 3 months is a good, at least a good starting place. Wait that long before you start moving further down the road. Um, we talked about love bombing and gaslighting and stuff in relationships. And I think sometimes um, too much isolation for too long and you may, have some red flags that are visible, but not to your eye because you've been caught up in the person romancing you and getting you on down the road. So if somebody's like trying to quickly establish, they want you to meet their mom, they want you to meet their kids, they want you to be, their main person. sometimes to me that's a red flag. I'm like, whoa, I need to get to know you first. So you don't throw me at your mama and everybody right now. I don't need all that. So, I think the young me, you have these romantic fantasies about being with a person, and those things are what we see in rom-coms and in romance novels and stuff like that. But the reality of that stuff can sometimes be a person is moving you in so fast because they want to secure you before you start seeing, the leakage of their real personalities, or, the things that maybe they don't want you to see before they get you secured. So,
No, and I think what you were touching on, that once you're in that honeymoon phase, it can be hard, right, to see through the smoke, through that, sexy pink smoke. But I do think that it can be helpful when that right time comes, right, for your family to meet your significant other, because they might be able to share some things that maybe you are just too and love to see through, right? Where they may point out that, hey, I noticed that this person is, more focused on this, or I noticed that this person is more of an introvert, or things like that, that you'll never really see because you're just so infatuated with this individual. And I can tell you that actually happened to me where, the only woman that I formally introduced to my family. And this was intentional, not somebody knocking at my door coming to get me, right? This was an intentional move that I did where I invited her and her son. And, everything went pretty smooth, pretty well. Everybody had a good time, all that. But post, that celebration, it was actually a 4th of July celebration, my cousin's fiance, who's, like a big brother to me, and, he's family. He, afterwards, we hung out after a couple of days, like after the 4th of July celebration. And he told me, he's like, are you into her? Or what's the deal with that? And I told him, I like her, and, I think there's potential. And I remember him telling me, I don't think she's going to be a good fit for you.
mm,
And I was like, why do you say that? He's like, he basically blunt out told me, I don't think she's into you like you are into her.
mm,
And he mentioned that, and soon enough, 3 months later, he was right.
wow.
I'm telling you, and I had the man up, and I told him, hey, my man, you were right.
Well, you know, to that point, being able to hear your family, you said something that Macklin is a dating um company. They're international, London, US, whatever, but they mentioned in an article I read that wait out that honeymoon period because you're in the grip of lust, you're in the grip of all this, high brain activity with these hormones flooding you, making you feel so good. And so he was able to see something that you weren't.
Oh,
Maybe.
absolutely. Yeah. And, he's older than me.
Yeah.
He's been married before. So, he has kids, he has daughters. So, I mean, he was, an experienced individual, and obviously a little bit older than me,
Right.
but he saw something that he did not think would be a good fit for me. And obviously I was like, oh, I don't know. I think so far everything's going well. And soon enough, a couple of months, 3 months later or so, he hit the nail in the head. And I had to, own up to it. I, and I feel that I probably would not have caught that if it wouldn't have been somebody who I trust and who I sincerely, put a lot of stock into their opinions and thoughts. I needed that. So sometimes your family needs to kind of be a little bit of a reality check, because when you're
Mm.
stuck in that, honeymoon stage where everything's funny and everything's, sunshine and rainbows, it's kind of hard to kind of pick out some of those little red flags that are just kind of hiding in the weeds, so to speak.
Well, and to that, I have to play the devil's advocate in this moment. But if your family is highly toxic, that may be the exception to the rule. If you've got a family that, is very contentious, there's a lot of backbiting, Of course, every family is unique. Every family has its own, shades of gray and complexity and all of that. So, just to keep that in mind, like we're not talking about the outlier family where nobody gets along, y'all fighting at the funerals and the reunions if you have them. That's not what we're talking about. But, if you genuinely have a good relationship, good rapport with your family, then they can be um, a really good litmus test as to whether the relationship needs to forge ahead or if you need to pull pause and you maybe look at some stuff from their point of view. And I wouldn't necessarily even say after the first meeting. This might be after a few meetings, like, before you go too far too fast. You may want to have several different meetings with different parts of your family just to gauge and see, like, how does this person react and respond? Not so much about your family and their approval as it is, how well does this person fit into your world? And how do you fit into theirs? Like there are some people that I have dated who did not have good family relationships. That was important to me. And so I was just like, how are you gonna have a one-sided um situation where you're all about your family, you're very inclusive, you want, a good relationship with this person and my family, and they don't have that same kind of thing. Not saying it can't work, but if they are contentious, they don't ever want to invite family members over. They don't ever want to do anything with family, and then they don't really want to do anything with yours. To me, like that's an incompatibility that is going to be hard for me to work through. You
Oh,
know,
absolutely. That's going to be an issue. That's going to create tension. That is going to be a sore subject, and you either figure out a way to find common ground, or it's going to be a deal breaker for somebody. And but again, that's something that obviously you want to address, you want to let it be known way before they get to the Thanksgiving table. That would be my opinion, that you
absolutely.
need to emphasize that, hey, look, family is important to me during the holidays, or even just because we get together, we celebrate. So
Mm.
if you're not about that life, then this is going to be a deal breaker, because to me, family is very important, and obviously you starting incorporating the cultural elements to it, then obviously that in itself is also something to be mindful, that certain cultures are much more, um, tight knit as it relates to the family structure. So I think those are all things that you want to make sure that you at least put on the table early on, so that you're not at the Christmas dinner having these conversations, because then at that point it's going to get real weird and real awkward.
Well, and that's one of the things too in this article. They say avoid the holidays if you can on those first meetings, because that can be very pressure filled and it can already be hard based on what's going on with the family dynamics, much less bringing a new person into that. Either it's everybody's all paired up and lovey dovey and, oh, you finally got somebody, or it's crazy and you're bringing them into that. So not do that. Pick a
Oh.
pick a Thursday, Tuesday night dinner or something out in public where everybody might do right. So, just some ideas on how you can make that a lot less tense and like really truly, do you know this person well enough? Like that's the one thing that I think about too. Do I know enough about this person that I would put my family's safety at risk if they were to not be who I thought they were? Now, I know that sounds extreme, but for people that I don't know your people, because I'm from the South and we're all about who your people. Like, let me look them up because I'm all about Googling people. So I know people have Googled me and I have done it the same especially on Tinder when I was on the dating apps. But if I don't know your people and my family doesn't know your people, look, I don't know what you might be capable of in this day and age. So to me, I want to make sure that I have gotten enough information. I've seen enough with this person, not just a razzle dazzle, but, have you seen them when they wake up first thing in the morning, or, how they handle dealing with tense situations? Do they have an anger issue? Are they going to go off on people, when they're driving? And does that mean something goes wrong at the family function? Are they going to be talking to your mom and daddy and everybody out the side of their neck? Like, I don't want to expose my family to somebody who may be a big risk. You know what I'm saying? So, in this day and age, I think it just behooves you to like do your due diligence. If it's the right person is not going to just run off because you want to wait to, meet family members and stuff. I think the right person understands where you're coming from and they value what you value, you know?
No, I agree, and I think just to kind of put a bow on this conversation, bottom line is be meticulous, take your time, and don't rush it. There's no need to rush because, like you mentioned, if this person is genuinely into you and this person wants to genuinely be in your life for something long term and something serious, then it should all kind of move and flow accordingly. And there shouldn't have to be a forced or something of, where it feels that it's a race that, hey, when do I get to meet your mom? When do I get to meet your daughters? And that kind of thing. Like to me, that it should never be handled that way. It should be something where, hey, as we get to know each other and as we invest and pour in each other's cups, then we're going to get to that point and, it's going to come up because obviously if it's something serious, the family is also going to play a role in this dynamic on both sides.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to sum it up. And if you've got topic ideas for us here at the Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa, please go to our YouTube page. We've got the episodes are very current. We keep those up to date. We would love for you to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Always get us at our website, therelationshipcycle.com. But we really appreciate all of you listeners for tuning in with us and for your participation on our Facebook discussion starters, because those really do water the pot so well for these conversations. I just think we have such a good time um, just having these interactions with our listeners. So please feel free to give us your input as to other things you might want to know about in this whole dating and relationship cycle that we're all in. So thank you so much from me, Poppy.
Thank you, everybody, for your love, your support. Please subscribe, like us, comments, and share our YouTube channel, The Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa. And thank you all for the love and support. Buenas noches.